Hello, everyone. My name is Scarlett. I'm the Communications Director of ScienceHolic and also going to be the host of today's webinar. Welcome, everyone, to ScienceHolic's second webinar, the 2020 version, my gosh. We had one last year in 2021, the Medical Week conference, so we're continuing this tradition by inviting four amazing professors, all studying various fields of biology, to speak with us today. And today we're excited to have Dr. Amy Tsurumi to speak with us. Hello, Doctor.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
We're so excited to have you here as well. Before we start, let me give a brief introduction of what ScienceHolic is. We are a youth-run nonprofit that aims to introduce intricate scientific concepts in a manner that's fun and comprehensive to teens. We also offer various volunteer and leadership opportunities to teens all over the world, including those who has English as their second language. Our main mission is to serve as a free resource for students to learn more about the various STEM topics. And other than this webinar branch, we also publish seasonal magazine editions. We've recently published our fifth. You can check it out on our website later after this webinar. And also a bi-yearly review where we allow students to submit their research papers and have them reviewed professionally before publishing them in a lower cost than most other publications. But then we better move on to the main topic, which is our guest speaker. Doctor, would you like to introduce yourself here?
Hello, nice to meet everybody. And I'm so honored and excited to be here today. And thank you so much for the invite and for organizing, Scarlett. This is so fantastic. I'm just so amazed by all this efforts that are ongoing with your organization. So I'm Amy. I'm an assistant professor at the Harvard Medical School. And I'm doing primarily my research. I'm based physically at the General Hospital, which is the flagship Harvard-affiliated hospital system. So our system is such that we have the medical school that does a lot of the education, where students go to get their medical education, but we also have the hospital system, the Mass General, the Dana-Farber, et cetera, et cetera. We have a whole network of hospitals in the Boston area that are affiliated. So you can do your research there. You can do, your clinical there as well. So I think it's like an interesting system where you can have interaction with so many different people. So I got my PhD from the University of Rochester Medical Center in 2011, and subsequently I completed my master's in epidemiology at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And then I started my research fellowship at the Mass General Hospital, and I just stayed on as instructor, and now I became assistant professor. So I just kind of stayed in the system. Recently, I guess my most recent achievement was to be invited to speak at the 44th Annual Conference on Shock. And I presented my research on applications of machine learning to make biomarker discovery and to develop, biomarkers for the clinical setting to predict patient outcomes early. Other roles I perform in the Harvard system is that I am also a course head. So I design and teach the epigenetics course at the Harvard Extension School. I also design and teach the epidemiology and biostats course at the Harvard Summer School. The other roles I perform at the Mass General Hospital, well, now we call ourselves Mass General Brigham because the Brigham and Women's Hospital also merged together. So it's really exciting times for our hospital system. So we have this thing called the MGB, MGH Foresight Microbes and Health and Infection Treatment Network Seminar Series. So I'm one of the steering committee members, and Foresight is another institute that's affiliated with Harvard that does like dental medicine and things like that, and Mass Ioneer, of course, with the eye research. I also am a seminar series organizer at a local nonprofit called Beacon Hill Seminars, where people take classes kind of more for fun. So it's a lot of retired individuals who want to stay engaged with the community as well as continue their learning. So I organize a series called Emerging Biosciences Straight from the Lab. And what we do is we try to feature MGH postdocs, and we try to have them present their own work. So that's a great opportunity to kind of bridge together our work and with the community outside. Yeah, and that's it. And again, I'm an avid opera lover. I actually serve on the board of the Boston Lyric Opera. So if you're ever interested in opera, I'm happy to talk to you about that as well. So that's me.
Good to hear. Before we start with the questions, attendees, if you have any questions for Doctor, please send them in the chat. We'll go over them at the end of this section at the live Q&A part, if they haven't been already answered during the main part, which is now. So the first question for Doctor is, what is the focus of your academic and research career?
So the focus on my academic and research career has kind of transitioned. So I do both basic science research as well as clinical research. So I'm kind of like a hybrid between the two worlds. So my PhD was on utilizing the Drosophila fruit fly model organism to understand epigenetic molecular mechanisms as pertain to aging and cancer and things like that. So I have a background in molecular biology and genetics, and delineating molecular mechanisms, so more like in basic science research. But what I also did was to do a master's in epidemiology, where I learned how to perform more computational work, as well as epidemiology and populational sciences. So currently what I do is I still use the Drosophila system to understand mechanisms of aging, as well as mechanisms of inflammation and epigenetic regulation of those inflammatory signals. But what I also do is currently we have a cohort study that is ongoing at the Mass General Hospital, where we are collecting blood samples from trauma patients who come in. And my previous work was on applying machine learning algorithms to transcriptome data. So taking, patients' blood and looking at the genome-wide expression of genes and trying to utilize gene expression patterns and trying to find, key patterns in gene expression that can help predict outcomes of patients. So, and in my most, recent publications have been on, developing these biomarker panels that can help predict infectious disease outcomes. And, we have a patent on these technologies where we, patent the panel biomarkers that we can use to predict patient outcomes really early. And what we're trying to do right now is to gather a new cohort and to try to validate our biomarker discovered, biomarker technology to see how well they perform. So that's what I've been up to these days.
Does your research apply to like applicable clinical implications? Like, do you apply your research into some remedies for different diseases?
Yeah, so our research currently is more in making predictions and prognosis, so more like biomarker prognostic approaches. But what is unique about our approach is we're looking at gene expression signatures. So whatever the gene expression signatures that we detect, we know are involved with these disease processes. And for us, like we're specifically looking at susceptibility to multiple infections, so more like immune, susceptibility. So that's the outcome that we're looking at currently. But now that we know the panel of biomarkers that are related to it, our next approach is to understand how to create therapeutics around that. Because if you know the gene signatures that are affected that can help make predictions, those genes must be really important. So our next step currently that's ongoing is to understand why they're important in the susceptibility to infections. So that's a really great question, Scarlett. So that, so we kind of have a duality of, currently our prediction biomarker technology is like patented, like we're kind of, it's more closer to the clinical application, but the information that we gather, we're trying to kind of create more therapeutics around it. And, to your other part of your other great question, the technology or the predictive AI that we utilize can be used for many different things. So it doesn't have to be susceptibility to infections that we did. We are also interested in applying our predictive AI to make predictions for things like cancers and things like that. And, a very similar philosophy applies here, where if you're trying to understand biomarkers that can predict an outcome early, that can help prognose patients, then that's likely going to be, genes that are related to the outcome too. So like, how can we take that information to kind of create therapeutics around that? That's the other arm. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And it's like the foundation of a lot of future therapies that you can enhance. So I do think it's really impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Moving on, what does your typical day look like? Since you've mentioned so much about research, do you spend your entire day in the lab, or how do you manage time between your different roles in the research, in the lab, or in the classroom?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's hard to juggle a lot of the different roles, but I think what you would realize, all the speakers are probably going to say the same thing, how like it's really hard to juggle our time, and we tend to not really have much of like a typical day, because sometimes we're doing things that are related to the teaching, and other times we're doing something that's more related to research. But typically I go into the lab around like in the morning, like 8:30. I start doing some like writing for grants or papers and things like that, because we have to do a lot of writing. So a lot of our job entails writing grants to get funding from the National Institute of Health. Is a big place we ask for research funding. And we also have to write our publications as well, and correspond with the authors. The other thing that I didn't mention is like I also sit on journal. I get asked to review journal articles and things like that's another part of our job, is to perform peer review and to do the editorial positions at journals and things like that. Um, and I sometimes do experiments. As I move on in my career, I do less experiments, but I still go ahead.
Oh,
Oh,
perfect.
great.
We can
Perfect.
move on. So you mentioned that you have a trajectory from more like biomed to a like clinical like biomarker approach. So why did you choose your particular path, and how did you transition? Like, did your plans change from when you were studying in university, and how did you decide on a specialty?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. In university and undergrad, I studied biology and French, actually. And I did my study abroad for one semester and things like that. So I kind of did find my path in a very roundabout way, if you will. And in university, in my junior year, well, between my senior and junior, no, actually, yeah, between my junior and senior year, the summer in between, I did a summer research internship. And that was very helpful. So that was a lab that was using chicks, eggs in development. So chicken egg, right? Like development, and try to understand the FGFR signaling pathway. So one of the key signaling pathways for development, and using like RNAi knockdown, which at that time was very novel. I know that now it's kind of routine, but at the time when I was in this lab, it was so fascinating. So that's something that like kind of put me towards a path towards research and kind of helped me develop more interest and passion in research. And then my senior year, I did, my senior year research project on a thesis, right? Like your undergrad thesis. So I did it with a professor studying the fission yeast and studying cell cycle control. Kinase is important for cell cycle control, and that's relevant to cancer. So, I do want to give a shout out to these two labs, individual Dr. Tang at the Claremont Colleges, studying yeast, who was really my really important mentor, who kind of helped me apply to graduate school. And Dr. Oberg was the one studying CHIK FGFR signaling. So these two individuals in my undergraduate were very instrumental in my career path towards research. Yeah. Yeah. And then and then I went to graduate school. So I did my PhD with Dr. Willis Lee, who was also really fantastic. And, there I studied epigenetics because at the time, this one, I studied this like KDM, like histone demethylases. And at the time it was very novel, like it was like such a new class of enzymes. So I was using the Drosophila system to understand how this worked during development and as well as during aging. And I got really fascinating with epigenetics and aging, and that's what I teach now primarily. Yeah.
So it's a lot of trial and error, since you didn't really plan on taking this route when you first entered like university, but it was more so experiences with internships, I would say, that made you like decide that you want to go on this path.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, Scarlett. Like it wasn't like I kind of liked biology and science, and like my dad was a MD PhD, so I kind of like had that familiarity with biology and things like that. But it wasn't really until I actually tried research that I didn't, you don't know. I mean, I certainly didn't know what it was to be at the bench and performing research. And, until I did it, I didn't know that that was what I really wanted to do. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
A bit of a off-topic question, but
Mhm.
a lot of college and high school students really want to get some research opportunity.
Excellent.
Where would you suggest them to look or like reach out to get such chances?
Yeah, so I was just about to say, that's a really great question. And that was one of the things I really wanted to mention here is there are many opportunities if you are able to look for them. And I think, what I learned is I kind of like shied away from looking for opportunities, or I just didn't know that they existed when you're much younger. Um, but you can certainly look for, there's internship opportunities, like if you go online even to look for, even at Mass General Hospital, there are high school research intern opportunities that you can apply to. And one thing, so when I'm teaching in the courses, so I actually also teach a 2-week pre-college course at Harvard as well. And there I always, like this age group that for, like the people here, the attendees here. And I always say that there are many opportunities that you can look for. And yeah, like Mass General has these, internship opportunities you can apply to. And the key is oftentimes these opportunities and your time schedule is going to be in the summer. Right. So it's key to look for opportunities for the summer in January or February, January. Okay, so it sounds really a lot more like early, but you really have to find the opportunities in January, February. Okay, so that's one thing that I would suggest everybody to look for these opportunities. You can look
Mhm.
for internship, like if you Google, internship opportunities for high school students and things like that, you can find a lot of institutes have those opportunities. And oftentimes the deadline is like January, February. So just be aware of that. You can also directly write to professors you want to work with, because sometimes they'll take you, right? Like not as a formal intern opportunity, but if you want to do research in their laboratory, you can just directly write to them with your CV and you know, um, your cover letter and ask them if they have opportunities directly too. And if you go to college, there are things called, the your undergrad campuses oftentimes have an office, a career office that you can go to, and they can try to help you find internship opportunities. There's also things called SURF, Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. Sometimes they're called SERP, Summer Undergraduate Research Programs. There are a lot of opportunities if you look for them early.
Moving on. Firstly, thank you for your advice, but next question. How can someone follow your path? Like, they want to do research in epidemiology, and so what how would you suggest them to study, or like what should they do when they're like in their education to prepare for a path similar to yours?
Yeah, so that's fantastic. Usually, you can major in biology or chemistry or physics or something related, or biomedical engineering, for example. That's another one to look for, engineering. I think that's not oftentimes something that people know about, like biomedical engineering, but that's another route that you can take as well. So I think oftentimes in your majors, like for example, we did 1 year biology, 1 year chemistry, 1 year organic chemistry, 1 year physics, and a lot of electives. So from the classroom, you can major in biology, etc. Like if you wanted to go to graduate school afterwards. Because a lot of the graduate school programs, they'll kind of have an idea of what they want you to take. So if you already know you want to go to graduate school and get a PhD in a specific field, you can look at the graduate school, criteria to see like what they need you to have in order for you to apply. But oftentimes graduate schools are your research opportunity counts a lot. Like, your grades, it's great to have good grades, but what can make a big difference is definitely how prepared you are with regards to research. So again, going back to just the question that you asked, which is a fantastic question, Scarlett, looking for research opportunities. When you get to college campuses too, there are many labs. College campuses oftentimes have labs, and you can look for specific faculty whose research you're interested in, and you can find their office hours, and you can just visit them, because during office hours there it's kind of free to go visit, so they're going to be there. So you might find professors whose labs you want to work in, find out what their office hours are, and it should be listed, on the website and things like that. So they should be really easy to find. So you can just visit them during the office hour and kind of introduce yourself and ask them if they have research opportunities, or write to them, etc. And when you write to them, you want to like make sure you highlight what it is that you want to accomplish in their lab and things like that. And often sometimes they won't have space, like, but you don't want to take anything personally, right? Like you only need one job that one, and I've also had to apply to many different, just to get that one first internship with Dr. Oberg. I had to apply to many places, but you only need one, right? So you just have to be kind of resilient and and if you really want to have research opportunities, you'll definitely find it. Yeah.
Is there anything you wish someone had told you before, like you decided on this trajectory? Like anything that you want them to like caution you about, perhaps?
Yeah. Again, I think knowing opportunities early, I think was something that would have helped me, for example, to have gotten better, even more better prepared for graduate school, even though I think I did okay in the end. But I think a lot of times I kind of felt that I wish I had more research experience before I started graduate school, and that I just knew that research experiences were possible, as an early undergrad. Because if you can get into a lab early as an undergrad, and you get to spend like a few years doing more in-depth research, and you can maybe get publications and things like that. Oftentimes, like myself, I just kind of knew that senior year or junior year I had to do something, and then that's when I found the opportunities. And I only got a very short span of time doing, any research. So I would really suggest, if you're interested in research, at least just say if you don't, if you're unsure yet whether or not you like research or not. And sometimes you might try it out and find that you don't like it, because a lot of my friends, they tried it, they didn't like it, and it's fine, because you had the experience, you kind of have a better understanding of what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So I think it's always really key to, or I would have wished to know earlier too, because I think because I found out that I liked it a lot, and I wish I had more opportunities. And for other people, when they did it later, like the research, they found out they actually didn't like it as much, so then they suddenly had to figure out what they might want to do more long term. So I think unless I think you kind of have a vague idea, and you do want to try it out, I think so, early.
Mhm. I feel this next question is kind of similar. You've mentioned
Yeah.
it like on and off, but what advice would you give to high school students, since majority of attendees here are high schoolers,
Mhm.
who are considering a career in STEM, or maybe even a career more similar to yours?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different opportunity in STEM. I think if you look for opportunities, like if you have an interest in like astrophysics or something, too, you can find opportunities there. And I think to keep your eyes out, because oftentimes I don't think I knew about, I just knew about biology, taking biology classes, but I didn't really know so much that there was so much different types of research that you can do. And for me too, like I started with more molecular biology, and it wasn't until later that I discovered more about computational biology and applications of machine learning and things like that, like more computational heavy. So that's something new for me, that I didn't really recognize existed as a path. So I think my advice really would be to keep your eyes open, and also at college campuses and looking at different labs, like you can kind of look at various people's labs and look at what people are doing and try to find out what it is that might be of interest to you, and then to
Mhm.
try that out. um that would be my advice, like definitely try it out, don't shy away from it, I think, would be my advice. And resilience, again, is important, because things in science take a very long time and it's very tedious. um, and that's one thing, science itself is very tedious, it's very slow process, so you just always have to be more positive and resilient. And also finding opportunities, as I was mentioning, you might have to apply to many, but you just need one, so just to and I think that goes to any career these days, like careers are very competitive, especially this generation, I think. And so I think just remaining resilient and remaining really positive and knowing that there's a path out there for, you just have to find the one, so I think that would be my advice.
Thank you so much.
Hmm.
So that's all the pre-prepared questions. So now it's the live Q&A session. Attendees, if you still have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat and we'll go over them. But for now, we'll address one question that we received during our sign-up form. That is like, what made you choose specifically to be a GI surgeon?
Yeah, so I'm technically not a GI surgeon. So I'm in the department of GI and general surgery, but I'm not a surgeon myself. So we do collaborate a lot with GI surgeons. So, in terms of why I'm in the department of GI surgery, it's because, my research is kind of relevant to surgery, post surgery, or trauma surgery, and that's why I'm in the that surgical unit. And we have collaborations also with specifically more GI, like a colorectal surgeon, for example, because we've been doing these studies looking at the intestinal alkaline phosphatases and how they relate to aging and things like that. So, yeah. So just the research thing. Mm-hmm. Oh,
We received two questions, actually, one direct message and one in the general chat. So we have a question from Anupama. How did you know you were going down the right path? I am interested in public/global health, but I am afraid I'm not making the best choice I can for my future. I am frightened by the idea of regret. How can I tackle this issue? What did you do when you were my age? So assuming high school age.
Yeah, global health. Yeah, that's really fantastic. Just to put it out there, my alma mater, Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, we have a fantastic global health program. So if you are interested, please check that out. There, it's a hard one because I didn't know either. I just kind of went with one thing at a time. One opportunity, for example, led to another opportunity that led to kind of like another opportunity. And if I would have known for sure that this is what I wanted to do, that wasn't the case for me either. But the thing I recognize now is the more you do it, sometimes the more you enjoy it. So sometimes you just in my case, I'm so glad I took that leap of faith and just went with it. Because having the expert, like spending a lot of time on something and having the expertise and the independence to do your own thing, and being recognized for that it just takes a lot of time. And the more you do it, the more you like it, the more you become recognized for it. And then for me, it was in retrospect. Now I know it was the right path for me. When I was doing it, I didn't know, to be quite honest. It was more, I was afraid of regrets too. And I wasn't sure if this was supposed to be it for me either. In the end, I look back and I'm so glad I stuck with it. Was there doubt in between? Definitely there was for me too. So I think it's hard to know. One thing you could do is to go down, like for me, like I went down, a very specific path with molecular sciences, and then I kind of, did a little pivot by doing an additional, training in computational work, right? So I kind of was able to make a small pivot, stayed within the field, but made a pivot. Not completely, but, kind of was able to incorporate like a new aspect that I'm so glad I did. So I think in your case, like if you're not sure about global health, but if you go down that path and you can make small pivots, to get to like a newer area of research, if you find that the trajectory you're on exactly might not, you might be interested in something else, you can make little pivots too. So I wouldn't be afraid of just trying out stuff, because sometimes the more expertise you gain, the more opportunities that come towards you. And then you might get asked to, be a part of a journal, and that might be really exciting for you, and you might, have opportunities to teach and things like that because of your expertise, and you might like that, so I'm afraid I can't really say. I don't know when I knew for sure that this was the correct, right path for me. It's more retrospect, I think. Yeah.
That's still really great advice, though. So thank you so much. And we have a question from Ellie, which mentioned something that you mentioned just now. How do you incorporate computations and machine learning into your biological work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, nowadays there's so much machine learning algorithms, and there's a great opportunity to take advantage of the, and also computers are becoming faster, so you can run these algorithms. So we've kind of entered this era where we have the tool sets that you can utilize and apply to biological questions. So the way we do it specifically is, so my research is we're very interested in looking at gene expression levels. So, we have like, approximately like 22,000 genes, and they're being expressed, right? Like at different times, like in different levels and things like that. So if you did, genome-wide, like RNA sequencing and things like that, you get this genome-wide expression big data, right? Um, but you don't but you want to find exactly which specific genes are related to your outcome. So that's where the AI and the machine learning come into place, because the machine learning will help you to delineate which exact genes are involved in the outcome that you're interested in. Okay, so that's how we utilize AI. So mine's more specifically for gene expression levels, like mRNA, microRNA, like RNA expression
Mhm.
levels. Other people, you can use AI machine learning to kind of understand like clinical data too, like demographics, etc. Um, any kind of data you can run AI. Any big data, and other people might use it on like MRI data, for example, and imaging data. A lot of cancer people do that as well, but mine's specifically looking at gene expression, like from blood.
Okay, we have one more question from Hani, and I think we have to start wrapping up. What are some characteristics or requirements that medical schools specifically look for? Is there anything that students can do, like volunteers or club, etc.?
Yeah, volunteering, definitely they want you to have medical school applicants. Uh, you have to have 1 year biology, 1 year chemistry, 1 year organic chemistry, 1 year physics. And then you want to do volunteering at hospitals, definitely. When I was in undergrad, there was a program at the local hospital. Um, the version that I know of in Claremont was called clinical care extender. Okay, so I'm sure that a lot of hospitals have a very similar program where they know if you're a pre-med student, they'll give you this not research, sorry, clinical internship opportunity. So those are things you might want to look for when you at the undergrad campuses with the neighboring hospitals and things like that. Or some of the undergrad campuses, they're also affiliated with hospitals too themselves. So I'm pretty sure that if you asked and oftentimes at the undergrad campus, you're going to find a pre-med club. Okay, so find your pre-med club when you get to undergrad campus. Most of them will have it. Somebody will have created a pre-med club. And then there you can connect with other people who are on the, doing pre-med and applying to medical school. So you can connect with older, students who are already in the application process, and you could ask them what specific activities they found on their campus. So that's a really good way to go about to like try to find these people. And then for applying to medical, like a pre-med track is not like really a major. So you can just major in anything, but be on a pre-med track. So some, people, they're like anthropology majors, but they're pre-med. So they take the requirements, the 1 year chemistry, 1 year biology, 1 year OChem, 1 year physics, and then they do the activities to be on the pre-med track, but they're majoring in anthropology, for example. And those are really fine, like they're very well looked upon for medical school applications too. These kind of different diverse backgrounds are really highly welcome, as long as you have those 4 requirements and then you take your MCAT and things like that. Yeah, so definitely volunteering at the local hospitals, definitely you should do. There's other things that you could do, like research that's related, that more like clinical research where you're interacting with the patients. So you can do research like that if you want to boost your medical, you know, um, resume and things like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I think that's all the questions we have.
Mhm.
And looking at the time, still a little early, but I think we can start wrapping up. So this is the end of the webinar. These are all of ScienceHolic social medias. We have Instagram, WeChat, YouTube, where we publish the recordings of the webinar, LinkedIn and Discord, where we also have community chats and everything. And if attendees, if you're interested in working with us, ScienceHolic, these are some various ways you can do it. You can join as a team member and join one of our various teams, editing, content outreach, which is where I'm in, art, social media, or organize a website. If you want a low commitment way to help us, you can become an ambassador. You can submit some of the blog and magazine articles to have them published, or publish your research papers with ScienceHolic Review. Or finally, if you just want to get updates from about conferences and blog posts like these, you can join a mailing list. So, and that's the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, Dr. Tsurumi, for speaking with us. It was so nice to hear from your perspective and learn from your experiences and your advice. Yes, thank you so much for sparing your time with us.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And do join, ScienceHolic team. I mean, I think these are such fantastic opportunities. I love, being involved. Definitely, it's gonna be
Thank you
helpful
so
for
much
your
for your
career. So
It was
thank you,
great.
thank you so much, Scarlett. This is so fantastic, and good luck with everything.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Attendees, we still have 3 more webinars to go for this conference, and the next one is at 7 p.m. EST, basically 1.5 hours later. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, again.
Thank you.